Big thank you to Gina Grubb for telling us the Easter story. Thank you, Gina. It's always really wonderful. One of my favorite parts of being a Unitarian Universalist is that you get to hear about all sorts of different religions, and sometimes from people who are actually part of that religion, and that's extra special, so we're glad for that today. So today is the last day of Passover in the Jewish tradition, and this is when the Jewish people celebrate their escape from slavery under the tyrannical Pharaoh. That's part of the Moses story in the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament. It's also Easter, when a Palestinian Jew chose peace and self-sacrifice over violent rebellion, defeating not only the Romans, but death itself. And Tuesday is the 55th annual Earth Day celebration, a secular holiday that acknowledges the planet on which all of these stories kind of depend. So it really is a very holy week. One thing to note up top here, and that we've alluded to a little bit throughout the service, is that religion includes some of humanity's most beautiful and meaningful art and stories. For those of you who are new among us, Unitarian Universalists don't limit ourselves to which ones we appreciate based on what our humble little brains believe is or isn't literally true. Instead, we approach all of these stories. Belief and acceptance are not required, but neither is knee-jerk resistance. But I know that some of us, that may be the reflex, and I invite you to just be open to lots of different stories today. As the Buddhists teach, I wonder if we simply notice what comes up as we listen to stories like these, without attaching or resisting. We honor our shared value of pluralism, which lifts up multiple sources of wisdom. But I do want to acknowledge that for some among us, Christian stories can be kind of painful. And I just want you to know that I see you, and I get it. Some parts of Christianity have lost their way, lost their grip on one of Jesus's two main commandments, love your neighbor. The Christian German theologian Dorothy Soleil named it the rise of Christo-fascism. Christianity began when the Roman Empire tried to quash it, but was overtaken. But some parts of Christianity have been infiltrated by empire in return, until they've become sort of twisted versions of themselves, instead of the beautiful, humble, loving grassroots movement that its originator intended. So we need to acknowledge that when that kind of Christianity is causing a lot of harm right now, it's impossible to celebrate Easter without acknowledging it. But that we want to lift up the loving part, the anti-fascist part, the radical, down-to-earth part of Christianity. And one part I want to lift up as well is that some of us who've been harmed by Christianity have been told we don't belong or we're not allowed to love these stories, and that's a lie. That's a lie that somebody has told you in order to cut you off from a really special source of wisdom and power. And somebody can say that all they want, but it's your choice whether to stay cut off or not. The rad thing about Unitarian Universalism is that as long as we're respectful, we can be curious about all kinds of sources of wisdom. We have no popes, no pharaohs, and no kings. No one owns the one true story of Easter. Even the Bible has multiple versions of the story, right? So if any of you would like to talk about religious experiences that you continue to struggle with, come have a meeting with me. That's what I'm here for. But to look directly at the story, maybe Earth Day can kind of help us have an additional lens here. Maybe we can look at the marvelous ability of nature to cleanse itself, for plants to filter cloudy water until it is clear again. So let us be among the plants that clear the water. In the words of Episcopal priest Reverend Kate Sibberine, Easter tells the story of an innocent man who's part of a marginalized group who is arrested, given a sham trial without due process, and then violently unalived by the state. This is distressingly close to what we're seeing in the news these days, done to, right now, Latinx immigrants. Here at ORUC, let us be specific about what kind of Easter we're celebrating. We are not celebrating the kind of Easter that solicits corporate sponsorships on the White House lawn. Nope, sorry. We are recognizing the kind of Easter that was self-sacrificing, that could have led to a violent rebellion, but instead said, no, I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to subvert you. The kind of Easter that was doubting, yet brave, that recognized a love that transcends death. And that's what Passover, Easter, and Earth Day all have in common, is this remembrance that there's something greater than death. There is a continuation, a oneness that is bigger than we are, but that we're part of. I want to lift up a couple of my favorite parts of this Easter story. Now, I'm not Christian, but it's a great story. All right, in Matthew and Mark, Jesus' last words are, my God, why have you forsaken me? That's pretty intense. This quote from Jesus sounds like this final moment of despair and abandonment. This Son of God, who was this faith leader, is going, man, whoops-a-daisy, this sucks. But I saw this Instagram video the other day by a Christian named Joseph Yu, who completely blew my mind. It turns out that people of this era, of Jesus' era, didn't quote the scriptures by book and number because their scriptures were scrolls. Instead, they quoted the scriptures by first lines. My God, why have you forsaken me is the first line of Psalm 22. So he was making a reference to a poem that sings of undying faith even while surrounded by enemies. So even on the cross, he wasn't talking about despair, he was talking about faith. The poem goes on, in you our ancestors trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. He's referencing Passover, and there's that interlocking web of faith that we are the inheritors of. He references the teachings that God or nature or both will not abide slavery or injustice or cruelty. They'll rise up in the locusts. They'll rise up in the rivers. This unnatural way, this empire, this top-down, oppressive way of existing isn't okay with the bigger picture, with the eternal forces that we're working with. Another aspect of the Easter story that I love is one that Gina talked about, which is that Mary Magdalene, depending on which of the books you're reading, it's either Mary Magdalene or a group of women that includes Mary Magdalene, who were the first to witness the aftermath of the resurrection. Nobody really witnesses the resurrection itself. It happens inside the tomb, and then it's like the next day. So that's kind of a cool little offstage moment. It stays mysterious. We don't know, you can imagine, Jesus' wrappings, right? They're left in the tomb, and the one that was covering his head is like neatly folded up. It was not a surprising blast of fire. The linen isn't burnt. It's not turned into glowy, whatever. It's like he woke up and he took it off and we don't know. It's amazing. But as it happens, the first to discover what's going on is Mary. Mary, who was considered mad earlier in the story. Mary, who was healed by Jesus' compassion to see that she was struggling with her inner demons, but who treated her with kindness. Mary, who comes to be called the apostle to the apostles, because for a minute there, she is the only one holding this new faith, this new Christian truth of the resurrection. So while some Christian groups keep women from leadership, we can see clearly that women received this cherished new revelation first. For a few moments, they're the entirety of the faith. And I think maybe God knew that if you want the news to get out, you better tell a group of women, because we're going to get it done. We're going to spill the tea. The Sikh author and activist Valerie Kaur asks us, what if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? We face difficult times, as humanity has seen many times before. We hear the phrase the end of the world a lot, and it's a little upsetting. But Passover, Easter, and Earth Day all remind us that life doesn't die so easily. Our dirt communion reminds us that even the soil, which may seem dead to us, is where death becomes new life again. It's where nature does its most mysterious magic trick. When we witness the atrocities of our age, when we witness unjust deaths, unjust imprisonments, we have the same choice as Moses had and that Mary had. We can stay in hopelessness and grief, wondering who we are to do anything about it, or we can carry the good news that goodness and life can survive an individual's death, that a better way is possible, that life and love remain undefeated. Passover, Easter, and Earth Day remind us that there are eternal forces greater than us, yet connected to us, that can put things right through us. May it be so.